Right. So I just wanted to say hi to everyone and good morning. I just want to give you guys like a little intro about myself and my business before we get into the personal finance and budgeting information. Um, and first of all, just outmost, thank you, Ivy, for having me today to speak on these topics. Um, I feel that they're very important, not just because that's what I do, but I think that they are also just very important in everyday life, and also just being able to, live comfortably and try to relieve the stresses that financial strains can put up on us. But again, thank you guys so much for having me today and everyone that is joining here on this meeting virtually. I'm very excited about this opportunity to speak to you guys today about the personal financing and budgeting. I did prepare a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation that I am going to share with you all here soon. I did, if you printed out the handout for it, totally fine. I just wanted to have something visual for you guys just in case you wanted to jot down some notes, or if you had any questions about any of the information that's going to be presented here today to you. I will definitely take some of those questions at the end. I'll also be sure to leave my contact information as far as email and my phone number, just in case if we don't have time to make it to all the questions, or if you don't want to ask it, in front of everyone, and you rather just send it directly to me, that's also totally fine. So I'll be sure to leave my contact information for you. Um, Also, I just want to be able to give as much information as I can. Some of the information, yes, you may understand and know or already may be familiar with, which is totally fine. But I also want to be able to provide you with information to help specifically in your situation, or just dealing personally with your finances, any questions that you may have or concerns about things that you're doing, just kind of double checking if you're going down the right path, or just to make sure that you're doing things the correct way in order to build financial stability for yourself, being able to take care of those goals and any type of task or anything that you have planned for yourself that you want to do, whether it's vacation, whether it's saving, whether it's trying to buy a new home, purchase a new car, anything like that. Any questions that you may have related to that in your personal situation, I want to make sure I provide you with that information to help with those decisions. Now, just getting into a little bit about myself. So, like Ivy said, my name is Jacqueline Burnett-Petite. I am the owner of JP Advising, which is my company. I'm the only owner there, the only business owner. I'm a financial advisor, and I work with individuals, I work with businesses, and I also work with entrepreneurs, just to help them to build and organize either their personal financial needs, or their business financial needs. I work with clients in both of those areas. I spent nearly about 10 years in accounting and finance, and I worked for a few employers where I worked in their accounting department. So with that experience there, it helped me to further believe that I know that the financial stability is gained through the use of suitable financial tools. Understanding what it means to manage your finances, understanding what it means to budget, and understanding how to make your income fit your lifestyle, in a sense of what you have to pay and things that you choose to pay for, which would be more aligned with those wants, that side, separating those needs from those wants, and just being able to be organized and in control of your spending, being able to manage your income versus the money that is coming in and then the money that is being put out. I understand that there is a lot of accountability that goes into that. That's a major factor in being successful when it comes to budgeting and managing effectively your personal finances. However, as a business owner, I have worked with a variety of clients and customers, all in different areas of their lives, all with different types of goals and things that they have in mind that they would like to do or accomplish. Just a variety of different customers and clients throughout the United States. I have been doing a lot of virtual meetings due to the COVID situation. However, I've noticed that it doesn't change the aspect of the relationship between myself and my client. We're still able to effectively, communicate, get points across, get an understanding of the situation, and being able to analyze effectively, and being able to provide that information for them. So it is like a new, I guess, era of what the normal is right now. But that's just the thing. I want to be able to provide that information to you guys on how to adjust to what's going on right now with the COVID, and how it's affecting us and how it's affecting our income and just our personal financial experiences. So with that, I would like to go ahead and share the PowerPoint with you guys just so that we can go over this information. And like I said, I will save time at the end for questions. If you could, if you don't want to forget them, jot them down, or just, you can post them in the chat side, but try not to chime in to interrupt, because I don't want anyone to miss anything. We will save time for that at the end. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now. Get my PowerPoint going here, and from beginning. Okay, there we go. So just entering into this personal finance 101, like I did just go over who I am. I just put in a little snippet there for you guys if you want to read over it later, just in case you missed anything. But the first thing's up, what is financial literacy? So that's a question that a lot of us ask. That's a question that I'm asked a lot about. It's something that we really don't teach anymore. Like, that's something that we really don't learn anymore as kids coming up through education and schooling. This is not really a topic of concern, which I feel that it should be. Now, what is financial literacy? So this question that I receive a lot, if you were to go on Google and try to look up the definition for the meaning of financial literacy, you would see that it is the ability to understand and properly apply financial management skill. Okay, so those keywords there, ability to understand and then properly apply. Okay, so it's you would have to understand what it is in order to be able to properly apply it, but how are you going to properly apply something that you have no idea of what it is? So that's where I come in to give you that meaning. You have to be able to understand how to plan and organize your finances effectively. That's basically what that means. And keyword they're using for effectively, because you can have an idea of how much money you make, where your money goes. I spend it here, I spend it there. But if you're not organizing and managing it properly and effectively, you're going to be in a situation where you're like, okay, I know I just got paid today, but I don't know where any of my, like, I can't even tell you where my money is. I can't even tell you what is the last thing I bought. That's not tracking, that's not organizing. So this financial literacy is having that understanding that this is something that you have to take on, just like something you have to learn to do. You have to get in a routine of building these good habits of managing your finances. For example, understanding your income that you bring in, and then organizing how your necessary expenses will be paid. And these necessary expenses, these are things that, basically your living expenses, things that you need in order to live and survive and be comfortable in your lifestyle. So your rent or your mortgage, your utilities, those are things that are important. Your water, your electricity, if you have, gas to pay for the home, for utilities, those are your necessary expenses that you want to make sure are paid and are paid on time. This also takes into account properly managing debt and calculating any interest that may come along with those debts and calculating that accurately. So what does that look like? That could be just your credit card. Knowing that, okay, yeah, I do have this credit limit. They gave me this set amount that I can spend and I can't go over this amount, but thinking reality wise and being effective with that credit card. Would you want to max that credit card out? Like, how are you're going to have to pay this money back eventually. How are you going to pay that money back? And then also, like I said, taking it into consideration the interest rate that comes with that credit card. So you may spend $50 for a purchase, but you're going to have to pay interest on that $50, depending on, if your interest is 19%, if it's 24%, if it's 26%. You're looking at paying like an extra $5 to $10 added on top of that $50 that you spent. So that is very important, keeping in mind any type of interest that you would have to pay back, as well as the amount that you spend, if it's like a credit card or even like a line of credit or something like that. Those things are very important to consider. Knowing how that interest rate affects your monthly balance can also help you to be able to better plan for that payment when it comes time for you to receive your income. You'll have an idea of what you need to pay for that payment. So that's very important. Lastly, on here with financial literacy, understanding the time value of money. So understanding the time value of money is knowing that you can't always only think about the present and what's going on right now, but you have to consider, how can you make your money today benefit you in the future? So how can the money that I make today help me in the future? And not in the sense of talking about retirement, not in the sense of talking about 401ks or anything like that. Just thinking about, how can your money today help you with anything that you have planned for the future? This could be any goals that you have in mind. If you're planning to purchase a home, if you're just planning to move, you're planning to relocate, or if you know that you're going to need a new car in about 2 years, because your car is probably going to last you about another 2 years, and you're going to need reliable transportation to get to work. Thinking about what you can do right now to help benefit you in the future, whether it's short term or whether it's long term. And this could include savings as well. It can include investing, if that's something that you are interested in doing. And investing just doesn't have to be the stock market, just to kind of throw that out there. You can invest in real estate. You can invest in businesses. It doesn't just have to be the stock market, but things of around that is what you want to think about when it comes to like future planning. You want to make sure that having that understanding on how to make your money work for you, and know that the value of your money today is worth more in the future. That is the understanding of time value of money. And so that is very important when it comes to thinking about financial literacy and how that applies to yourself. Okay. So now, personal finance. Let's talk about personal finance. Again, personal finance, that is the financial management which an individual or family unit performs to budget, save, and spend monetary resources over time, taking into account various financial risks and future life events. That's the, yes, technical term, but what does personal finance mean to us? What does this mean to us? How can I relate that to myself? It's the way that you manage your money and your family's money. That's what it comes down to. How do you manage the income that you receive? And then how do you manage it as you're dispersing it into these various places or various things that you have to do for yourself or for your family? This concept aligns the way that you budget, the way you save, and the way you spend your money. It is all about how effectively you manage your money while also taking into consideration any potential risk and also plans or goals that you might have for your future. Okay, so just thinking about something as an example, just to kind of relate to, something that could happen in real life. Something as simple as I was saying is buying a new vehicle, or just making a large purchase, period. So before deciding to purchase this new vehicle or making this large expense purchase, take into detail your budget. Look at your income. Look at your expenses when it comes to, like I said, the necessary expenses and the things that you don't necessarily have to pay for, but you kind of do. And that would be like, subscriptions and things of that nature, those things that we don't necessarily need. But take into account your entire budget and seriously ask yourself if this is something that you can afford to do. And not only to afford to do at that moment, But whatever expenses that may come along with this purchase, this new vehicle, whatever it may be, will you be able to afford it? It's a question that we tend to kind of not really want to ask ourselves. We just look at, well, I can afford it right now. We look at the right now, but we don't really look at what comes with purchasing, a new vehicle. You still have to maintain that vehicle, even though it is new. It doesn't mean that the maintenance goes away. So all of these expenses that come along with new vehicles or any other types of large purchases, you want to make sure that that is something that you can afford going forward, and it won't hurt you in a bad way to where it's more stress or more of a strain on yourself. So at this point, weighing the positive and the negative effects of that purchase. And when you're weighing those options on those large purchases, it is very important to be realistic about your finances and also being realistic with yourself. It just because you can't get something right now, it does not mean that you failed or you're not able to ever do it. It just means that you want to put yourself in a better position financially in order to be able to make this purchase. Maybe you just need a little bit more time. So that's where that realistic approach comes in, with realistically looking at your finances and being real and honest with yourself to determine if this is a good purchase decision or not. And you use your budgeting and your information to help you to make those decisions. So again, weighing the positive and negative effects that this purchase will have on your financial position. And it's just as important as, like I said, just as simple as being honest with yourself, being realistic with yourself, and making that decision to determine if this is a good purchase buy or not, period. Okay. So what is the importance of all of this? What is the importance of financial literacy? What is the importance of personal finance? What does all of this mean? So being able to organize your finances and keep track of the money that is coming in and going out. It is also important because it helps to highlight high spending areas or where money could be used in a more effective way. So this keeps us aware of our spending. If we're able to track our spending, if we're able to keep it organized, this helps us to be aware of what we're spending, where it's going, how much is going there. Being able to identify those high spending areas. So even if it's something like you like to eat out a lot, if you keep track of your spending, where your money is going, you'll be able to categorize, okay, I can see compared to last month, I spent 2 times as much on eating out this month. I need to cut back here. There's no way I should be spending $200 to $400 grocery shopping, but I'm going out to eat just about as half as much as I'm spending on food for my home. Then what is the purpose of spending that much on groceries when you know that you're going to eat out that much? And normally eating out is just for that one meal. I mean, sometimes, yeah, we have leftovers, and then sometimes we don't even eat the leftovers, or we leave the leftovers at the restaurant. Well, when we were going to restaurants and things of that nature, some of them are open, but just the point of those eating out sessions are just for right now. They're just happening right then and there, versus you budgeting to go and grocery shop and get food for your house for a couple of weeks, and then you go again and get food for your house for a couple of weeks. You save more money in that sense, in that way. It is a lot more expensive to eat out nowadays as well. So just keeping that in mind and keeping that organization there can be a very important factor on considering, your budget and paying attention to where your money's going. Piggybacking to helping to identify those target areas where you need work. So those high spending areas. Sometimes our high spending areas is like our mortgage or our rent. That's totally understandable. You have to have, sometimes that has to be your high spending area because, that's where you live. That's your protection. That's where you have your roof over your head. You need that. And that's understandable. However, other target areas that you spend frequently in, or you just have higher spending amounts there in those other areas that are possibly not necessities, like I said about the eating out, or even shopping is another one. Paying attention to those things. This is important because we can identify where we are spending too much. Where are we spending too much? Okay. we would need to make the decision to budget on things like these, to help us to stay organized. And also, it'll help us to be able to see, well, I'm not just overspending because it's like an impulse buy, or I'm out of control, like my finances are just out of control and I'm just spending, spending, spending and not paying attention to the effects that are happening as a result of me just uncontrollably spending in these particular areas. So it helps to be able to identify those, come up with a solution on what you can do. And normally, what I say is, for example, I had a client, and she was having, she just outright, she just said she knows that she shops a lot. And I told her, I was like, I totally understand. I find myself at times as well. Sometimes I want to just go and shop as well. Like that's just what I want to do. But the difference between what I was doing and what she was doing, and then again, this could have just been a lack of information or knowledge on her part, that she might not have been exposed to, which is totally fine. But the difference between what she was doing and what I was doing is I was planning for whenever I wanted to just have that impulse to go shopping. I would just put money aside and I would say, this is my shopping budget. Whenever I'm ready to go and buy something and I just want to go shop, this is where I'm going to pull that shopping money from. Versus she was just, oh, okay, I want to go shopping today. Like I want to, I'm having a bad day. I know if I go shopping, it's going to make me feel better. And she would just go, just on impulse. And then it's not a control situation. So then when she goes, she spends more than what she planned on spending because it's not, again, it's not a control situation. So it's very important, like I said, to be aware. These are all little factors and they may not seem major right now, as you're doing it, but sometimes you can see those effects immediately. And then sometimes it takes a little time and then you're like, whoa, like I'm really, I really need to cut back here, or I really need to work on this specific area of my finances and get this part of my finances under control. I'm trying to work towards this particular goal. I'm trying to do this particular activity or task. And I'm not going to be able to do that if I continue to spend money here in this area, or if I continue to uncontrollably spend money here in this area, or if I can't bring this particular category of my expenses down. So it's very important, with those, to just to help us, again, like I said, to stay organized. Identifying the problem is the first step in making a change. I really believe in that because if you don't know what the problem is, how are you going to know what to look for to change? How are you going to know where to start? Where do you start? Where do you need the work? Where do you begin? If you don't initially identify that problem, if you continue to just ignore or run away from these problematic areas as if they will just go away on their own, eventually they do catch up to you. Or you will be forced to you'll just be forced to deal with it. And that just comes along with, like I said, you might not feel the effects of, your spending that's out of control, or certain things that you do, where you're spending a lot of money and it's affecting you. You might not see it immediately. Some things you do see it immediately, but eventually it does catch up to you. And then you find yourself asking, why didn't I stop spending this much here, months ago? Like, why am I still spending so much money here? And that's because you weren't aware. Like, you were just spending and you weren't paying attention. You weren't tracking what was going on. You weren't tracking how much you were spending, and you just out there just frivolously spending. So sometimes, like I said, it does catch up to you immediately, and then sometimes it eventually just comes back around and you're like, I have no choice but to deal with it now. And a prime example of that is credit cards are like the number one thing. It's a balance. Some people look at it as, well, it's money that I have to spend, but in reality, it's not your money. It's the bank's money. They're just loaning that to you to use when you need it. And that's the important thing there. It's when you need it. It's not just because you want to go take a trip, or it's because you want to go shopping and you want to just go and buy a brand new wardrobe. That's not what it's for. It's there for you to help if you need it and you don't have the cash on hand, and this is something important that you have to take care of right at that moment. That's what that's for. And a lot of times, a lot of people do not look at credit cards in that way. And then they don't look at it in that way until they've maxed it out. And now they're like, oh my gosh, my credit cards are out of control. I don't know what to do with them. Like, what am I going to do with them? I don't know what to do. So in that sense, just specifically with that, that's just an example. But in that sense, that's why it's also important for us to be able to, like I said, understand and recognize those problematic areas, and just dealing with them and seeing how you can make changes to your current situation and what's going on right now. What can you do that's better, that will better your situation? That's what you want to think about. So organizing and tracking your finances is very important, from the first dollar you make to the last dollar that you spend. Let's go to the next slide here. So getting into the budgeting 101 is what I call it. Knowing exactly how much money you make monthly and how often it comes in. Know exactly where your money goes. So this is expenses and spending. Knowing your goals, whether they're short-term or long-term. Creating a plan to help you reach those goals. And learning to not live beyond your means. So again, that's that separation between identifying your needs versus your wants, and having a clear line when it comes to those two things, and not letting that line get blurred, from time to time. Actually knowing, okay, this is a need, even if you have to write it down when you are doing your budget, highlighting these are needs, and then off to the side somewhere, these are just wants, things that I don't necessarily need at all. I always say, and this, I guess it's kind of like a slogan, I probably should use it, but I always say that every dollar has a job, and I say that because every dollar that you receive, it should be assigned to something, whether it's an expense, whether it's a debt, whatever it is, if it's saving, whatever it is, every dollar should have a job to do. And the reason why I say that is because if you receive a bill in the mail for your electricity, they're going to send you the exact amount that you owe for using electricity for that, that time period, that previous month, from this date to this date. If it's $52.73, they want $52.73. If they don't receive that $52.73 by that due date specified on that bill, they will tell you that you run the risk of having your electricity turned off. Same thing, every dollar has a job, down to the cent of an electricity bill. Granted, yes, I hope that they would not turn off anyone's electricity behind 73 cents. I really would hope so. But in a sense, if they are sending you a bill for an exact amount, that is the amount they expect to receive from you by that due date to keep your electricity on. You should treat your budget and your expenses, your needs and your wants, you should treat them the same exact way. Having accountability for each dollar that you make, knowing exactly where each dollar is going. When I am talking to anyone about budgeting, I'm always stressing the importance of knowing how much money is coming in and how much money is going out, because it is literally that important. And I know I've said that a lot already so far, because that is the main concept behind having a successful budget. If you can identify and track each dollar that you make and you know where it's going, then you can track successfully and effectively how much money you'll have left over, or how much money you need for certain things, because you're organized, and then you are assigning that money to those different expenses or debt or whatever it is that you're assigning it to, but you're tracking it in a sense to where you're aware of what is going on. Knowing exactly where your money is going is very important, because it can help you to be able to track your money. This is where you would be able to identify where you're spending too much. So back to those high spending areas, or just, frequent spending areas. It also helps you to pay attention to why certain expenses are like maybe high. Like I've looked recently at my phone bill and I'm like, oh my gosh, like why is my phone bill this high? Which, and in any other time, I don't really pay attention to it. I'm just like, it's my phone bill. I need my phone, I have to have it. So I just pay it. But then as I look over the trend of my phone bill. I notice that it increases in some, like sometimes it's higher than what it is. And then I look at it over time, like maybe 6 months to a year, and I'm like, whoa, like it's a major change in my expense. And so that would be something that I would look into, like, okay, how can I either cut back on this amount? Like, I don't know if I need to change something, or is there some service that I've signed up for with my phone that I'm not using and I'm still paying for it? It makes me take an extra look into that particular expense. So that same thing, budgeting and organizing helps us to be able to see where we might be spending too much, or even if it's not where we might be spending too much, it just brings our attention to any expenses that are higher ticketed amounts, and it makes us pay attention, ask ourselves those questions that we wouldn't normally ask, like, why am I spending this much on this? How can I reduce it? Another one that I've noticed are subscriptions: Netflix, Hulu, Roku, all of those things, Spotify, Pandora, like all of these subscriptions, we get them particularly for kind of, I think, whatever we're doing at that moment. And we're like, oh yeah, I can use this, I can use this because I like to use it for, specific things, for this, and this. But then you find yourself kind of not using them as the time goes by. And we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. I'm pretty sure a lot of you are guilty of it. We have these subscriptions to everything. Just something that we see and we think it's interesting, or we think it's cool. We sign up for it. We use it a couple of times and then we don't use it anymore. But the way they get us is because it's on automatic pay. Well, if it comes straight out of your Apple account, or if it's tied straight to your debit card, and you just kind of pay for it. Like it just comes out automatically, so you don't think about it until you sit down, organize your expenses, and you look at your bank account, and you're like, whoa, what is all of these little purchases here and there with all of these subscriptions, and what's going on? And it makes you pay attention to those things. So that's another important factor, another important piece of budgeting, just paying attention to little things like that. And just think about it. Some of these subscriptions range between $10 to $25. But think about, what else could you be doing with that $10 to $25? You know what I mean? It could go somewhere else. Even if you're not saving anything, you're not saving any money. For some people, it's very hard for them to try and save or build a savings. But then when you take an extra close look and just an extra eye out into your expenses, and you notice, well, I'm spending $10 for each one of these subscriptions, and I have 5 subscriptions that I don't even use them anymore. That right there is at least $50 that you couldn't put into your savings account that you can now put into a savings account. That can be $50 that you can put in every month. And it's not about the amount that you're trying to put up. It's about the fact that you're able to do it. So that right there, weighing that option, and being able to see and tie those two things together. I'm not using this money here. It's basically being wasted. I can apply it somewhere else and be more effective with this money that I'm spending here. And that budget can help outline that for us and bring that to light for us there. These are also important things here because you always want to have something to work towards. So your short-term goals, your long-term goals, anything that you have planned for yourself or for your family, just for your future, and not living beyond your means, because like I said, you want to keep those needs and those wants separated so that it can help you to be able to identify what you need to do in order to work to reaching these goals or making these plans and making them stick. It doesn't matter, like I said, whether it's short-term or long-term. These things are effective regardless of how you want to look at it. If it's something that you want to do in the next 3 months versus something you want to do in the next year, it doesn't matter. It's still just equally important. The only difference is you have more time to plan for one thing versus you do for something that's coming up in 3 months. You would have more time for like a long-term goal. But you want to have, with your budget, you want it to be detailed. You want it to be outlined in a format that you understand, something that's easy for you to follow. And the reason why I say where it's easy for you to follow, because if it's easy for you to follow, you're more likely to stick to it. If you've never budgeted before, and you create a budget, or if you have someone to create a budget for you, I always tell any of my customers, that it's gonna take some time to get used to, especially if you've never been organized before when it came to your finances. Um, it is a little tough. I always say that. I'm not gonna like say that it's not. It is a little tough getting into the routine of a budget because it's something that you have to get used to, just like any new skill or topic or task that you learn on your own. It takes time for you to get used to it and to learn it and to perfect it. Same thing with budgeting. If you've never budgeted before and you just kind of, when I get paid, I do this, I do this, I do this, and then I might do this. Like if you just kind of all over the place with it, but you're not really tracking, you're not really organizing, it's not in a detailed format, something easy for you to follow. Yeah, it's going to take some time to get used to, but it helps to build those good habits that you'll have, in routine habits. That's another big thing with budgeting. Having a really good routine, because you're going to have to do this every month, it's going to be something that you have to get used to doing all the time. And it starts with that detailed outline, making sure you list down all of your expenses of, what you are responsible for, and making sure that you're separating those needs again from those wants, not having that blurred line there. Making sure you clearly see, this is a need, this is something I have to do, versus this is just something that I want to do. Having that clear line and keeping it very organized. With these budgets, detailed organization, being able to track, getting into that good routine, it will help to shine a light on, what you absolutely need to do versus what can wait. And that is, very important there, because a lot of times we're like, I have to do this now. I have to, and it's like, do you really? You know, do you really have to do this right now, or is this something that can wait? What's more important? You want to prioritize your spending, if possible, and then of course your needs are going to be at the top of that list versus things that you just want to do. Even if it's something like I have a routine of going, hitting happy hour with my girls or with my guys every week on Thursday evenings. In reality, as much as you do that, and it's so fun and it's so great, you guys get together, you can catch up. Hey, it's not a need. It's not necessary. That's something that you want to do every week. So therefore, that would be something you would need to plan for to do every week, if that is something you are able to do. So that right there, that what you need to do versus what can wait. That's really important. All of these factors really go into creating and having an effective budget, and that's really what budgeting comes down to. I did attach, in the PowerPoint, I have this budgeting example. I did send over for a handout if you guys were able to, um, print it out or just pull it up, on your phones or anything like that. I just did an example that's kind of realistic here. I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button. That's kind of realistic about, what your budget may look like. So notice at the top there, the importance of knowing your income, your monthly income, knowing the frequency of how often you receive this income. Now, just because I do have in this budget, this set amount for the income and how often it comes, it doesn't mean that you can't create a budget if your income isn't consistent. If it's not the same amount every single time, or if it's not on the same day all the time, or if it's different amounts of time in between, those pay periods, those things are still equally important. You're still able to make, an effective budget, but the fact that it's inconsistent, and so you kind of can estimate about how much you'll receive or estimate when you'll receive it, that right there should be a very, very important, factor for you to make sure that you are budgeting, because of the fact that you do not know how much you will receive the next time, or you do not know when you'll receive it exactly. So you need to definitely plan, all of the needs that you have, your housing expenses, your utilities, those things need to be taken care of whenever you receive income. Those need to be taken care of. Everything else that's not necessary should be on the back burner. So that is a more even promoting and more persuasive factor to definitely create a budget for yourself. Um, it works in the same way. Notice how on the left side, and you don't have to structure yours particularly this way. I just wanted to provide an example to you all, just so that you can, just a starter, just to kind of see what to do, how to outline it. Of course, everyone's not going to have the same exact expenses or anything like that. Some people may not have any debt expense. And some people may have a lot, some people may have a little. It just kind of depends on your situation, but you want to categorize it. This helps to see those needs versus those wants. Looking at your housing expenses, and notice under there we have like anything that's related to an expense dealing with your home. So your rent, or your utilities, or any of those specific things, anything related to your housing expenses. Notice that column there next to it, the due date is very important. I understand that a lot of times some people have a lot of bills and things on their accounts, and they have that auto pay feature set up to where it just comes out and they don't even know when it's due, because they're like, oh, it's on auto pay, so it just comes out when it comes out. I don't know. It's important to know the due dates. And the reason why is because if things change, for example, right now, the situation that we're in with COVID, it has affected all of us. It's affected all of us financially. Some people are without work. Some people can't afford their living expenses the way that they used to. It's important to know when these things are due, because you never know. You might have to go and talk to this expense creditor person or lender or whoever it is, to let them know, like, hey, I just need a couple of more days. What is the late fee? How many days do I get for the grace period? And when do you guys charge the late fee? A lot of times people are fearful of missing their due date because they're fearful of receiving a late fee. And a lot of times these late fees are out of control. They really are, because they're a penalty to you in a way of punishing you, like, hey, make sure next time you pay this on time, just like if you were being scolded for doing something wrong. So it's kind of like a penalty to you. So a lot of these late fees are seriously ridiculous. But the thing is, you might have something that's due on the 5th. But if like, I know I get paid in a few days, by the 8th, and I don't want to get a late fee, how are you going to know unless you contact whoever that is, that for that expense that you have to pay? Most of the time, they do not charge you late fees the day after the bill is due. Normally, that, like, majority of the time, they do not. There are some who do that, but there are, most of the time, they do not charge. If you're going to be 1 or 2 days late, they're usually okay with that, depending on what that expense is. But again, it's important to reach out to them if you're having trouble, instead of ignoring it and not paying it, and you're like, I'll deal with it when I can. A lot of us do that, because we feel like we don't want to have to call and say, look, I don't have the money for you guys. I can't pay it this time, or I can't pay it right now. Like, you just don't want to do it. You feel like it's an hassle. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. But at least the thing is, at least you were notifying whoever it is, you were notifying them that, hey, I'm having a little trouble. I need a couple of days. When would I be assessed a late fee? Sometimes they give you 5 days. Sometimes they give you 7 days before they assess a late fee. Well, that might be just enough time for you. You might only need 3 days, and they don't charge the late fee until 5 days. So that would work perfect for you. You would still get your bill paid on time without receiving the late fee. So it's just a matter of reaching out, having that open line of communication when you need the help to get it in line. But otherwise, paying attention when that income comes in, looking at what you need to pay, look at those due dates, and know, okay, well, I received income on this day and this day. So for this example, I just have it for the 1st and the 15th, very general. Not necessarily every situation, but if this is something, if I know that I'm going to receive my income on the 1st, and I know that I'm going to receive my income on the 15th, and I know how much I'm getting, both of those times I'm getting that $3,300. Well, I've already organized my expenses based off of in different categories based off of what I need to pay, like what is a necessity. I've taken into account the due dates. Notice that certain things, look at the water and the electricity. If I pay that bill in full on my check that I receive on the 1st, then of course I'm not going to have to pay it on the 15th. It's not going to be due again until the 1st and the 9th. So just keeping in mind those due dates is very important, because it can help with managing your money, knowing how much you're getting on a certain day, and then taking into account those different expenses that you have to cover with that income. And then just noticing at the bottom. So I do have the debt expenses on there. I do have automobile expenses. I do understand that everyone does not have car payments. So if you don't have car payments, then of course, you can skip that part. But if you have a car, you're supposed to have insurance. So usually you have that insurance expense there. Keeping those things in line. And most of the time, insurance expenses are one of those things that we have on that auto pay feature. But still, it's important to know when that expense is due, and just keeping those categories organized. This is a very good way to help you track. You'll be able to go through these sheets. If these are monthly, we have 12 months in the year. If you have one sheet for each month, you'll be able to see how much money am I spending in fuel every month? How much am I spending in fuel throughout a whole entire year? Looking at your electricity bill, how much am I spending every month, and how is this contributing to how much I'm spending over a year? Is there a way that I can cut back? Like, what am I doing? Do I have some things that am I leaving lights on every day? How can I cut back on my energy bill with my usage? These are things that can help you to answer those questions. When you have something to look at that's organized and it's categorized in a way, like I said, of separating your needs from your wants. And then notice towards the bottom, I have those miscellaneous expenses. I have a dog, so I know that he has these, it's not pet insurance, but it's like to cover his visits when he goes to the vet and things of that nature. That's a miscellaneous expense. It's still a need for me because my dog is my baby. But everyone, yours might not be, a pet for a pet or something like that. It may be some other type of miscellaneous expense that is necessary that you have to pay. So you want to take those things into account for your budget. Now, notice you do not see anywhere in this budget under food, you don't see eating out, right? Because eating out is not a necessity. It's something that you choose to do because that's what you want to do. And in those senses, those things you need to plan for. If you want to make a separate budget that you contribute from every pay or from a certain amount that you receive in income, you want to put a certain amount into a separate budget for eating out. So say for every $200 that you make in income, you put up $20 to go towards your eating out budget. That is totally fine. But it should not be something that's included in your home or your financial budget because it's not a necessity. That's where that line needs to be drawn. This is not something that you have to do every month in order to live comfortably, in order to survive. That is not something that you would need. But notice that groceries and food shopping, that is included in the budget. Because when all else fails, if you can't afford to go out to eat, you're going to eat the food that's in your home. And 9 times out of 10, that's a lot cheaper than trying to eat out all the time. So that's why there's a grocery expense on here under food, but not an eating out / restaurant or whatever the case may be, whatever you want to call it. That's not on here because that's a one. And then just kind of looking at the bottom, after tallying up, all of your expenses for that pay period. So for example, under the 8-1 pay period column, that leftover income. So that's my income, or for this example, not my income, but that's the income from this example, the 3,300 minus all of the expenses that are listed. And then I have a leftover amount there of $717. Okay. From there, you see a savings amount, $143.40. I normally say if you can start somewhere with savings, totally fine. Start wherever you can. if you can have like a set number. I usually say try to do 20 to 25%. If you want to do more and you can afford to do more into a savings account, totally fine. But I usually say if you can, try to do a minimum of at least 20% to contribute into a savings account, because it's important to have that emergency fund, or that pandemic fund in this situation. That's something that we can definitely relate to. Some of us didn't have anything put aside, so when our hours at work changed, or when we were receiving less income than what we were normally receiving, we took a really hard hit because we had nothing there to help us supplement that um that missing amount that we would normally receive. So that savings is important. A lot of people are like, well, why do I save? And the interest on the savings account is basically nothing. You just get a few cents every time. Well, we're not saving to gain interest and get rich. A savings account is not going to make you rich. A savings account is there to help you if you need to supplement. If you, for whatever reason, are short or have a shortage of funds and you really need something done, you have an emergency, there's something that is absolutely necessary that you have to do, and you don't have those extra funds lying around, that's what your savings account is for. It's there to help you and save you in situations, to keep you from um, falling behind, or to keep you from not being able to fulfill a certain need that you have to do because you don't have the income for it. So that's what that savings account is for. And then notice, after that leftover amount, the savings is then subtracted out, and then you're left with that remaining income between pay periods. And I'm very particular with those words, remaining income between pay periods, because a lot of people are like, I live check to check. And like, I don't want to live check to check. How do I not live check to check? Well, that all comes with definitely managing your finances and budgeting. Now, in some instances, in reality, if you make $1,200 and your expenses are $1,100, if you can't, give or take, try to relieve yourself of maybe $100 to $200 worth of expenses, then okay, you're left with that remaining $200 every between each pay period that you have to work with to go between pay periods. Well, you know what? You should better manage that $200 to where you can make it stretch for yourself. Look at that $200 that you have. What else are you spending it on? That $200 could have some other role that it can be, that it can go towards, that can be more effective. So pay attention to those things. Regardless of what the amount is that you have left over, just make sure you are using it effectively. And you're being responsible, and you're holding yourself accountable for every dollar that you spend. Okay. So this is just like an example here. Just to give you an idea of what it can look like for a budget. Just to kind of outline those things, and definitely feel free to go in and alter these. And I can also send a blank one. Oh, I did send a blank one there for you guys. I can send a blank template for you guys if you want to try to fill one in for yourself, or anything like that. Like, definitely feel free to make one for yourself, and get your expenses and finances and things of that nature organized. And like I said, it doesn't have to specifically just be a certain, you have to make a certain amount for income, or you have to have a certain amount of expenses. No, it's fit for everyone in their own way, because everyone's situation is different. So it's just a matter of being able to track and keep everything organized. It helps you to pay attention to what you're spending, where your money's going. That's the main importance of this budgeting. All right, going over to, so I know I talked a little bit about the pandemic and everything that's going on with the COVID, and just how it's affecting us in our personal lives, and how it's affecting us as a world, in the economy. Just to talk a little bit about the pandemic and everything that's going on. It's important because we have all been affected by this. Like I said, some of us have been affected more than others, but it's a current situation that we're all currently living in, and that we're all currently dealing with. Unfortunately, we don't know when things will get better. We don't have a timeline of when things will kind of go back to normal. I honestly don't think there will be a normal after this, because this has been an eye opener, not just, for me, I'm pretty sure other people, it's been an eye opener, just to really give you a reality check of, were we prepared for this? And a lot of us were not. So I don't, just in my personal opinion, I don't think there will be a normal like that we would go back to that was before this. It will just be life after COVID-19, which is why I titled this slide that, because it's something that we don't ever want to forget of what happened, ever forget how it affected us. Um, so we have to look at it as when things do start to get better and when things start to improve and things seem to be normal, we want to see, how can we plan, for things that may come up like this. How can we help ourselves, to better deal with situations like this when they arise, and hopefully not to this degree, but just, it's just an eye opener for us to see, you know how these things can help us. We can use this as a teaching moment, to help us define some of our objectives in life when it comes to our finances. It can also help us to be able to pay more attention, to our budgets and what we're doing and what we're saving and where we're spending. So we can use this as a teaching moment to help us all. Um, this COVID has taught us the importance of budgeting and managing our finances and being in control of our finances. Again, just to kind of pinpoint whether the income is consistent or whether it's inconsistent income, it's not about what it is, it's about how we manage it. And it's about how we, how can we be the most effective with it. So just keep that in mind. It's not really just about it, the inconsistency, or even the consistency, because some people can have a consistent income and they can still, have trouble with managing their finances because they feel like, oh, my check is going to come regardless. So I know that I'll have some money, next week, but instead of, managing it and being more effective and making that money work for you to where you're not like waiting until your next payday or waiting until you receive your next income, you have it under control because you're managing it effectively. Um, Also, understanding that living within your means, that's another important one. Separating those needs from the wants. Again, I say that. Learning how to live on your income. Everyone doesn't make the same amount of money. You cannot compare your situation to someone else's situation. You can't base the way that someone else runs their finances is how you should do yours. You can't do that because everyone has to live and um, base their routines and their objectives based off of what they receive, based off of the income that they receive personally in their home and for their families. So the main thing behind that is separating those needs and wants, knowing what is necessary and what isn't, and learning how to live on your income. I bring up the emergency fund again, that savings account. That's important. And this situation, this pandemic has taught us that we need to have something set aside for a rainy day, in a sense that it doesn't rain and there's a thunderstorm. We need to be prepared. Whether we want to be prepared for it or not, we need to have that there as a safety net for us. So that's also another thing that we can take away from this situation, that teachable moment, that we had to go through this to help us to be able to realize, okay, this is important. I need to do this. And again, that with those emergency funds or those savings plans, if you want to separate those two, you want to have an emergency fund that's for emergencies, and then you want to build a separate, like, personal savings account, you can definitely do that. If you're not able to do them both right at the same time, totally fine. If you want to build that emergency fund first, build that emergency fund first and then have that savings off to the side. It's totally up to you. Again, make your income work for you and make it fit your lifestyle. Everyone is not going to have the same exact, situation going on. So with that, with the emergency fund, like I said, with the savings, I think that a minimum 20%, if that's something that you can do, yeah, start there. If not, start with what you can start with and just try to build it from there. With that emergency fund, you can probably look at into, I usually say at least like 3 months worth of your expenses. That's what you should work towards as a goal. Um, a lot of times some people try to do 6 months. That's great. If you can do that, that is totally great. But if you just need to start somewhere, try to shoot for having at least 3 months worth of um, income in your savings account or an emergency fund, just in case you need it. That'll give you time to, bounce back from whatever the situation may be. Also, being smart with your money. Not saying you can't, enjoy life and live and do fun things, and things that you like to do, but just being smart with your money. Being mindful of what you're spending. So like I said with that example earlier, you plan to go and, grab happy hour or grab dinner with, your friends or, something like that. I'm not saying that you cannot do that. I'm just saying you have to be mindful of your spending. Is that necessary right now? Those are questions that you want to ask yourself. Should I be doing this right now? Can I afford to do this right now? And your friends, if that's the situation, should not judge you. If you come to them and say, hey guys, I'm gonna have to skip out this time, I can't afford it right now. Or you don't even have to warrant them that response if you don't want to. But just you being aware of your situation and understanding if that is something that you are able to do. So just being mindful of your spending, being mindful of your financial situation and what's going on with you. Make it a habit of planning for things that you want or planning for things that you want to do. So if you like to shop, if you like to eat out, put it in your budget. Plan for it. Put, little by here, put it aside so that when you do decide to go out and shop, or if you do decide to go out and go eat or whatever the case may be, you're pulling that money that you want to use for that particular activity, you're pulling it from a separate budgeting pot than from your overall budget. So you're not taking from one of your needs to try to fulfill a want. You have that already put aside because you planned for it and you've prepared for it. You don't necessarily have to have a set due date just to plan for something. You don't have to have that. You can plan for like it could be your fun budget. You can shop, you can use your shopping out of there, you can use your eating out of there, and it's not taking away from things that are important and things that are necessary. So always plan. That's very important, to always plan for things that you want, or for things that you want to do, and especially any large purchases. You definitely want to plan for those. Because you don't want to just impulse buy on a large purchase and then feel the blowback of that. That is not fun. So you definitely want to make sure that if you have a large purchase coming up, or if you know that you plan to make a large purchase in the next year or so, or the next few months or so, plan for that. Put yourself a separate budget within your budget. Have something separate that you can use. And when I say separate, I'm not a fan of having the little, a lot of cash laying around. And you're like, oh, this is my budget for spending, or this is my budget for, going out to eat, or this is my budget for this. Because to me, I feel that if you see the money just laying around, you're going to find a way to spend it. It's like it's burning your pockets because you're looking at it, versus I am a fan of, if you have like different like checking accounts or something like that. Of course, if they're free, I don't want you paying monthly fees on things that are, that you're planning for or budgeting for. But in an ideal sense, there are some people who have more than one checking account, but they have more than one checking account with no purpose. This is where I am a firm believer of having purpose when you have different checking accounts or things of that nature. One account can be used just for all of your necessary expenses and things of that nature, where your income comes in and where you pay out your necessary expenses. And then you may have this other account that you use that can be where your budgeting goes, if you have for like shopping or for eating out, or fun things that you like to do, or things of that nature, any activities or anything. That's where you can build your small little budget for those things where you can plan to have that. And then you have two separate debit cards for those accounts, so that and you have to build that accountability and be responsible enough to know, if I am shopping or if I am doing any of the fun things that I like to do, I use this secondary account. I do not use my primary account for that. And that's a way of just keeping it organized. It's just another way to show, and then you'll be able to track. If you only use that secondary account for these fun things or these things that you like to do, you can track your spending there. You can see how much you spend in certain areas over a certain period of time, because those are the only types of expenses that come out of that account. So it's very important to have that type of system set up, I believe, because I feel it's more effective than having just cash laying around and you're like, oh, this is for that, this is for that. Because eventually, if you see that cash there, you're not going to want to go to the bank that day. Oh, I'll just use this $100 out of here and I'll put it back. And then you never put it back. So that's why I say I think it's a good idea to have those separate accounts for that particular reason only, not for any other particular reason. And then just lastly here, going back to the savings plans, just reiterating, having that rainy day fund, or just increasing your emergency fund, having that emergency fund built up and having that there. It's important. Even if you are, like I said, in a situation where you can't save $100 to $200 every check or every pay that you receive, that's totally fine. Everybody's not going to be in the same situation. The point is that you try to build some type of savings. And like I said, we don't want to be in a situation like this again, and we're not prepared. We're going to use this as a learning opportunity to help us moving forward, to be prepared for situations like this. Things are going to happen that we have no control over. And we don't want to kind of be just stuck, without a plan or, without a paddle, as so they say. We want to make sure that as much as we can, try to prepare ourselves for any type of situation that may come our way, that may have an effect on our income. I'm not saying that, building a savings will get you rich, because no, it won't get you rich. It's there as a safety net to help you in situations where you need those extra funds, or you need, extra support financially. You have that there. Also, always plan for what could happen. Like I said, we are not in control of everything. And we want to try our best to plan for what could happen. How can we be prepared if something was to happen? We just want to be prepared there. And again, that minimum amount, like I said, I do say at least 3 months. Of course, sometimes it's not like you go right now, I need 3 months of savings right now, I need to get the money right now to put in my savings account. No, work your way up to at least saving 3 months worth of expenses, at least. You can always do more. If you want to start with the goal of 6 months, hey, totally fine. But I just think, in my professional opinion, I believe that if you have at least 3 months worth of savings, that's a good place to start. It's just a matter of starting somewhere. That's the main thing here with the savings. It's just a matter of starting somewhere to build some type of savings or build some type of emergency fund, or both, just in case you need it in the future, whether it's the near future or if it's long-term down the road. When you need it, you have it. That's the main thing here with savings. And yeah, so I just want to say, in closing here, I would like to leave you guys with a question for yourselves that you can ask yourselves. And the question is, what can I do to help effectively improve my personal finances? Look over your income, look over your expenses, look over your situation now, and have that hard conversation with yourself to see if you are really doing everything that you can to improve, or at least to maintain, your financial situation. Like, have that realistic conversation with yourself, and really ask yourself, are you really doing everything that you can to make the situation better? Have you exhausted any, all the options of what to do that can help either improve your situation or to help you to at least maintain that situation? If you are not doing everything that you can effectively, then create a plan to help you to make those changes that you need to make to help better your future goals and your plans. Help to better plan them out. Help to better set those goals to where you can knock those goals out. If you are exhausting every option, if you are doing everything that you possibly can to help effectively manage those things, see where you can make changes to, again, just contribute to bettering your future. If you're organized and you are budgeting and you are paying attention to what you're spending and you're tracking your spending, and it's organized and your needs and your wants are separated, then just see where can you improve. What else can you do? What else can you do to make your situation better? What else can you do to help yourself reach those goals that you have for yourself, whatever they may be? What can you do to get there? Be realistic. Hold yourself accountable to things that you need to get done. That's the main thing that I would like to leave you guys with. That whole thing, being realistic, and then holding yourself accountable. That's what it comes down to. You want to be able to say, okay, I messed up here. Okay, got it. I know what to do to fix it, or come up with a plan on how to fix it. But we don't want to just keep sweeping things under the rug. We don't want to just keep pushing it out. I'll deal with it later. Because eventually it's gonna all, it's gonna all come full circle, and we're gonna have to deal with it one way or the other. So it's best to just be honest and be realistic with yourself. Take a look at your finances. Go through all of your expenses and come up with an organized, detailed plan, a budget to help make your financial situation a lot easier. And if you need to reach out for help, reach out for help to get someone to help you to get started. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with reaching out and getting help to get someone to help you get organized if you need it. But yeah, just those are the things that I want to leave you guys with. I really, really do appreciate everyone who attended the meeting today, and I just want to thank you all for having me today. It was definitely a pleasure just to kind of portray this information to you all, and I hope that I answered some questions. I hope that I helped someone in some way. I hope that someone learned something somewhere through the information that was given. And I would like to go ahead and take this time. If there are any questions, if we want to go ahead and go through those, I would like to take this time to go through any questions or anything that anyone may have, and just to kind of get that information answered there. So I'll go over to the chat. Okay, so hi,
or if
Jacqueline.
anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask her.
Oh yes, sorry, I should have said that too. I'm sorry. and I guess, would you like for me to read the question out loud, Ivy, or how would you want me?
I would just repeat it.
Okay.
Answer, read the question and then go ahead and answer it.
Okay. So I have a question here that says, is there a budgeting program or app you would suggest? With the apps, I don't have any particular apps that I've used, but I have had some clients who've used like the YNAB. I think it's You Need a Budget. I think that's what it's called. It does have that kind of outline of, how to you can categorize your expenses by certain names in different categories. But honestly, it's really up to you. I'm a big fan of Excel because I feel like a lot of these apps, you can kind of do it yourself in the Excel format. Like you can categorize, your own budget, and you can even, I think Excel even has like some type of budget template or something. They can give you some kind of idea. And the only reason why I say that is because I always think about, if you get an app, you got to pay for it. You might get it for free for the first 30 days or 7 days or something like that, but then you have to start paying for it. So then that kind of contributes to another expense that you're paying now that's not necessary. So I don't have any in particular, but I know I've heard of that one. And then also Mint. That one is also a good one. I think that one actually might be free. But you have to like link your bank accounts and things to that nature. So if you're not comfortable with that, then I wouldn't recommend using that, because you do have to like log into your accounts and so that it can pull your transactions and things of that nature. But it's a good way to organize your expenses. And like I said, I think the Mint app is free, if I'm not mistaken. But also, like I said, Excel is also that's a good tool to use. It's a very good tool to use. And then you have those formulas and things in there where you can use. Let's see. Yes, someone asked if I can share the monthly budget planner as an Excel or numbers file. Yes, I will do that. I was going to possibly get anyone who wanted to share their email with me where I can send that. If you guys can share your email with Ivy, and then she can forward me that. And I can send out that budget planner in an Excel format. Yes, I can definitely do that. And I have another in here. Oh, it's another. Okay, it was about the recommending for the program or budgeting app. And this one says, not so much a question, but the YNAB app about a year ago and it's life changing. Yes, I have heard that. So that's what I said about that YNAB app. I have had several people who use that, and it is, yes, it can definitely be a life changer, because it helps you to be able to organize, and it helps you be able to see your trends, and you can see your balances in real time there as well. You can see any goals or anything that you have. So that is definitely, like I said, I think that it is a good app, but like I said, you will have to, I think, pay for it after the trial period. But again, that's totally up to you. If that's something that you feel you can afford to do, then yes, go ahead and do that. Let's see. I was in that Excel sheet. Oh, sorry. Okay. So yeah, any more questions? I'm sorry. I'm reading and like I'm reading and trying to say the questions at the same time. But you guys are great. I love the participation. And then again, I will also share my contact information with Ivy so that she can share that with you guys. So that if you think of any other questions, or if you have any comments or concerns about anything that you may want to ask me, anything about the class or anything, just, if you have personal questions about your finances or things, and you would like my professional opinion, I will share my contact information with her so that she can share that with you guys for sure. You all are very welcome. Bye.